everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unconventional Money. Today we have our special guest again, and today we are going to. Matt reached out to me about one of the videos I did, and he disagreed with it from the viewpoint of a reluctant communist, as he claims. Again, we're gonna make that a brand and make it some kind of clothing because it's a reluctant. It just sounds really cool. It sounds like a cool phrase. So we'll capitalize on that and give him the gains and convert him to capitalism. Not. Anyways,
That's right.
I wanted. He's gonna give his take on a video I did, and then we're gonna go from there. So, which video are we gonna talk about that you disagreed with or didn't find 100% correct?
Okay, well, the video that's most relevant.
Uh-huh.
Hang on. I think Okay, cool. The video that's most relevant is your most recent one, whereas you were speaking about the mistakes bosses make.
Okay.
And
sure.
the points in the video, they were all correct. But there's a theme coming. There's a theme that I've noticed running through your videos.
Okay, I'm listening.
Whereas you haven't quite fully owned that you are in a superior position to your employees, and I think it's detrimental to your future, actually.
So I am in a way, but I'm not in a way.
How are you not?
Okay, here's why. So one of the things that I do, me personally, I let my employees make a lot of free will choices without my authority. Okay. So I give them permission to make judgment calls that sometimes I don't even think is best, but I allow them that opportunity. Let me give you a good example. We had a really good job come up, and it was pretty significant. And my technician was like, look, I don't know what it is about the guy, but there's something about him that's just giving me really bad vibes. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, there's just something about him, dude. He's like, I don't feel comfortable with him. I'm like, why is that? He's like, he's very, something about him is off. Like, I get a hunch, something about him is really off. And I was like, what is it? He's like, I can't explain it to you, but he's like, if you met him, you would know what I mean. So I said, let me call him. So when I spoke with the guy, yeah, I kind of got like a really weird feeling from him. Like, it was just kind of, I can't explain it. So, you know, when sometimes you get that hunch inside, like something ain't right. And I was like, look, if it was me, I would be comfortable enough to still go do the job. But if you're that uncomfortable, you can go ahead and turn it down. And so he did, and there was a good amount of money. So I give my employees free will to make choices that they may deem necessary, that they don't have to have my authority to do. So I give them a lot of free will to make choices. So in that instance, I would say it's more of a partnership between myself and my employees, right? Because the reality is, without good employees, I cannot make money. How do I know this? Because I've had bad employees. But on the flip side, they also need me, because without the infrastructure and setting everything up, they can't do it. So it's more of a 50-50 partnership. Really what it comes down to is just how the wording comes on paper. The wording says, here's a great example. I have a particular employee for one of my companies. I can show you the numbers. He makes more money than I do at the end of every month. When payrolls go out, after everything's paid, he as an employee makes more money than me as the owner of the corp. 100% he makes more money. So how do I have superiority over him in that sense if he's making more money than me?
All right. So again, everything you said is correct. And I love our conversations because like we just agree, like really. We just agree a lot. Everything you said is correct. Now, what I offer you is a distinction. Is delegation what I'm hearing you describe is delegation. So like you trust your employee skill or whatever. But when I say you're not in a superior position, I mean mentally. Like the way that you approach your relationships with your employees is like, we're all in it together and we just got to work together and like achieve something. That works. But in a way, oh wow, in a way, that's actually a socialist way of thinking. Like the way you approach business is actually rather socialist.
Well, so like I said, the socialist ideologies do work on small scales and on free will. They do
Okay.
not work in large scales when they're government forced. So, like, if I have a team of workers, and here's a great example. Next year, I told my guys, if we do well, I'm willing to give people shares in the company. They literally become part owners in the company that I started. So they're going to become shareholders, aka part owners, because this gives them incentive to do well together. So doing that with 4 or 5 guys works great, right? Because I started the business from scratch. They kind of came with me. They're putting in a lot of the work. But down the road, there's no way I could do this with every employee, right? Like, how could I do that? So I can only do that with the ones that are providing high value and that are with me from the get-go. Kind of like in that last video we talked about. If we start, let's say, a commune, for example, and everybody's putting in equal work and we're starting together, you raise all the chickens and I'm growing all the plants, and someone's got the cows for milk and someone's got the goats for meat, right? And we're all putting in equal, it works fine. The problem becomes, well, we built this up for 10 years together, and then the government says, oh, well, you need to give equal shares of your milk, meat, dairy, produce to little Johnny A over here, who's only been on the commune for a week. You're like, well, wait a minute. Unless he's going to bring in substantial finances or some value, he cannot just come in and get the enchilada with us because he wasn't there from the get-go. So I'm not against sharing and distributing things. It's just I'm against it when it's government forced, because it's like if you believe in something, if you want to practice a religious belief,
Right.
you that's something you have to do on your own. Nobody can force you to do that, right? It cannot be forced. But when the government says, look, you have to do it because we say so, that's when it's a problem. It's like you cannot force a belief system on someone, just like I can't force you to believe what I believe on topics, right? We can talk about it. Here's my viewpoints. Let's see if we can figure out, is there a way this can work? But I cannot mandate these things. My problem with socialism is when it's mandated through the government. This is how it's going to work. On a small scale, on free will, it can work, but just not on a large scale. It'll never work on a large scale. As history has shown us, it always ends badly because the power goes to those in control, and then not everyone is going to have good intentions when they get power. It's just the way it
All
is.
right. Okay, Ram. The example you gave is clear cut. That's like a black and white example.
All
And
right.
again, I agree. However, we are in this very the place we're in as a Western society is rather insidious, right? And I'll give you an example.
Right.
um, there's a movement now with this social on entrepreneurialism, right? And I'll tell you someone I hate. I can't stand this guy. From the moment I saw him, I cannot stand him. You know
Who's that?
who it is? It's Gary V.
I was
I
about to say that.
hate this guy.
I was going to say, is it Gary Vee? Because he's just so popular. He says
No, he's a
true.
fraud. He is a fraud. I hate
Okay,
that
what's your
guy.
opinion on it? He says a lot of stuff that's really ridiculous. It's really ridiculous.
It's insane. He's like, well, to do this, you have to reach out and you have to connect. So a lot of these I say these like I don't, I'm not trying to attack the people, although
Sure,
boy
sure.
do I want to. um, anyway, it's like attacking the shepherd. Sometimes you gotta cut it off at the head.
I
Uh,
understand.
so it's this whole movement around social entrepreneurism, where it's as though someone is creating value for the purpose of others, and
Okay.
it has never been true. Like the reality of it is, a business, once it really gets going, it has a mind of its own. And if you look out in nature, what happens? Something that starts small, it grows big, it eats, it grows bigger, it gets bigger. Preferably, it'll become the apex predator in the environment. And then what does it do? It just eats everything else. If you look at businesses, right? What they do is they kind of survive. Hopefully, they'll get eaten by a bigger company, and then like the owner can step away. But if they become the bigger company, the whole way that they do business must change. And
Well, I don't
Warren
agree
Buffett,
with that. That is true. The way you operate with, and I've had medium companies and I've had smaller ones, and I enjoy smaller ones because there's still an element of control where it doesn't just become a numbers game where everything is ran by numbers, right? I'd
right?
rather run 10 small companies with 3, 4 people here, than have one monopoly company with 50. It's just way too much of a burden. That's why I have multiple companies with 3 guys here, 2 guys here, 4 guys here. I don't, for me, I've had a big company, and the stress and what it does to you, I wouldn't want it. I'd rather stay small, and you make just as much profit, honestly, when you're small, because you don't have the
Yeah.
massive overhead or the massive competition.
So if I were to label you as a social entrepreneur, would you take would you bear that mantle with pride, or
I'm a
would you
social
shy away from
entrepreneur.
it?
See, like I said, socialistic ideas do work on a small scale individually and on free will, right? Like if I own a company and I want to split up my company with my 4 staff and say everyone's going to get 25%, we're all going to put in together, we're going to share the profits, I'm going to manage this. I'm not against that. But it has to be a free will thing. It cannot be government forced or it has to be something I want to do. And I've done this before where
Right.
I've shared hey, I'll go 50-50 with you. Here's a great one. I had a home care company and there was a girl and she was just exceptional work ethic. And I said, listen, I'm willing to go 50-50 with you on a new company. We'll open a new company. I will provide all the money and the financing to get this going. Your job is to go to the meetings, meet clients, deal with staff. I do the back end, you do the front end. We've been working together now for 4 years and we've made a lot of money. But that was, I had to do it on my own free will. It cannot be forced. So to me, that's fine if we word it that way, as long as there's a distinction of it has to be a free will thing. There's another guy named Ryan Pineda. Have you ever heard of him? Ryan Pineda on YouTube?
Pineda sounds familiar.
He's a pretty big YouTuber, very successful guy, 32. He's got far more successful than I am. And that's one of the things he does, I found out. He gives shares of his business to people that have work that he feel are worth it to give them incentive to do better. So they all become part owners. But again, this is on a small scale. He's doing this with companies with 10, 15 people. He's not doing this with 20. Because once you scale too large, it just doesn't become manageable. It's just impossible to equalize everything. When you're smaller,
Right.
you can do that. And even within a social mindset, there still has to be some form of a hierarchy. So are we equal as far as things go? Yeah, but we are, but we're not, right? So it's like a husband-wife team. Are the husband and wife in an equal partnership when they're married? Yes. But there has to be boundaries on, if you're old school traditional, you say, okay, when the man says this is how this has to be done for this, okay. If the wife says, no, look, this is what's best for the kids, there has to be some level of authority. It can't be this, we're all on equal authority playing fields. Because an example was, I had a guy who wanted to do something with the company, and he's a shareholder. He says, we got to do this. Now, he doesn't have experience. I do. And I said, listen, if we do this, we will do really good for a year, but we can destroy ourselves in 2 years because doing this may destroy cash flow. And he had no concept of it because he's never done it to this scale before, right? So I said, listen, I'm going to say no. I'm going to take the authority and say no because I know what's going to happen if this doesn't work. The risk is really high. I've done it before, it's failed, and I know it can fail. And if this goes down, a lot of people are losing their jobs. So the answer is no. We're not in a position. Down the road, if we have more money to risk, we can. But right now, the answer is no. So I had to take that authority and say, in this moment, I have to show you that I have to there has to be a structure of authority. We can't all make equal decisions because it has to be like, hey, like if you're the expert of, let's say, the company's cars and you manage all the company vehicles, you're a mechanic, you have authority to decide, hey, even if I'm the owner and I say, I want you to do this, and you're like, listen, this is not a good idea because if you implement this, you're going to have this problems. I should be willing to relinquish my authority and say, you know what, even though I'm the owner or the majority shareholder, I relinquish my authority to you in this regard because you have the experience. With socialism, I don't think you can do that because they say everyone's got equal rights, but you don't really have equal rights because it just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work.
That was a very, maybe I'm reading you wrong, Ram. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I got a wrong read on you. I don't know. But like growing up, I've always been more ambitious, like on the ambitious scale. So
Okay, that's
I
good.
was the one who've been like taking risks despite all my friends and like my
Sure,
family,
sure.
and just one learns things about human behavior, and and you're just, but you've done more than me. But you're just so nice. You're so nice. And like in my mind, I'm like, how is he even?
No,
How?
you don't have to be. See, that's a bad concept a lot of people have. People think in order to be a businessman, you got to be this ruthless, cold-hearted, shank you in the back. I've survived all my years in business, and I started when I was young. I was 25 years old. I'm 33, 8, 9 years ago. I
Yeah.
survived all my years by playing it cool. Let me be reasonable. Let me not be a dictator. And there's an old saying that says, if basically I'm going to paraphrase it, like if you want to be great, be the servant. That's what it says. And so what that means is my guys know I'm willing to work just as hard as them. I don't expect them to put in work and not me. So a great example is I had a staff a couple years ago. We had a job, and his day labor helper could not help him. He just couldn't make it for whatever reason. And it was a very big job, but he needed another guy there. It was a 2-man job for an installation of a 75-gallon water heater. So he calls me and he's like, man, I don't have anybody. What am I going to do? Now, I had my own other business because I have other companies to do. And I remember I said, listen, Harry, give me an hour. I got to schedule some things, but I guess I'm going to have to go with you. I got no choice. So I remember I made some calls, said, listen, I'm going to be busy for about 5 hours. I got to help a guy. And so I had to go put on the jeans and work boot, and I had to go help him. And I didn't want to do it. But after that day, his loyalty to me was great because he knew, hey, like, push come to shove, I know I can rely on this dude to work. Now,
Right.
I am the boss, right? I am the owner, but I have to be willing to do the groundwork too sometimes if it's needed. And coming with that approach with my guys, they always gave me more respect for the most part because it was like, hey, at the end of the day, like I know this dude will put in work. Like they can call me on a midnight if there's a problem. Hey, the website's down, something. So I try to make myself as relatable as possible, not oh, I'm just behind the desk and you never see me and I'm just here to chalk orders. Like I tell my guys this, there's nothing I'm going to ask you to do that I myself am not willing to do. So
Right.
I'm like, I need you to work on a Sunday. I'm also down to work on Sunday. So I
Right.
tell them that whatever I ask you to do, I'm also willing to do. And whatever you ask of me, when the flip side is true, then I expect it of you. Like one of my guys recently, he's engaged and he had asked me, hey, can I get a Friday off? Because my fiance is coming in town. She's only going to be here for 3 days. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'll make an exception. You're about to get married. You're young. Okay, fine. But I said, but next time I need you to come through, like on a weekend, or if it's a Saturday night and an emergency call comes up, I want you to remember I gave you the exception this time. So if I ever need you, I'm going to expect the same. He's like, okay, fair enough. I said, all right. So if I call you Saturday night because a big job comes up and it's an emergency, you're going to go because I'm giving you Friday off and you're getting paid for it. He's like, no, that's fair.
Interesting.
So I try to be, I'm a capitalist, but I don't follow a lot of the capitalist quote unquote ways of doing business. That's not how I operate.
Capitalist way. So let's I saw one of your other videos, whereas you use the example of the 10 talents, right?
Oh, 10 talents. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's like a biblical thing.
It's a popular Bible story. Yeah. That I used. Uh-huh.
So to use another biblical example, let's take Solomon. So you would use the word ruthless. Now, there was that most notable incidents where Solomon, like he had the two moms, one says the baby is hers, the other says the baby is hers.
Popular story. Yes.
So he's like, just cut the baby in half, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that right there was wisdom, right? That was clear cut wisdom. At the same time, that was incredibly ruthless.
Yeah, no, that was. It was kind of a combo of both. But I think he knew the real mother was going to stop it. I don't think he would have literally had the baby cut in two. I believe that was more of a test.
You know what? But like going off of that, if he had true wisdom, he would have understood that there was also a possibility that the mother might not have said, go ahead. And so in the end, like he was committed to just no matter what, if it didn't work out, that baby was just going to get cut in half.
It's hard to say because we don't know. We know that the real mother said that's my baby, so we don't know. We don't know
I know.
we don't know like what would have happened if she said. We don't know. Or what if he fainted right when she said that out of shock, and then well, it's one of those ones where it's like, we'll never know. But yeah, now Solomon, though, on the flip side, if you read about his story later on, when his son, so this is a fun one. He had a son named Rehoboam. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Rehoboam took over the kingdom. Okay, and Rehoboam was warned from like the wise men, like the elders, whatever, the council. Sir, he's basically told, serve these people, be loyal to these people, and they will be a servant to you. So Rehoboam then goes and gets advice from his bozo-headed friends, and they tell him the following. They say, tell these people, my father's waist isn't as thick as my pinky, meaning as hard as Solomon was on you, whatever he was, I'm just going to be that times 10. My pinky ring is, or my pinky finger is thicker than his waist, meaning like he's nothing compared to what I'm going to do. And that actually caused a split of the kingdom of that day. They split apart because of this. And so a lesson learned is, if this guy would have listened to those that had experience and said, serve these people, work with these people, and they said they're going to be loyal to you. But this idiot went and got advice from his friends who had no experience. He basically destroyed the kingdom because of this. It was a big factor that contributed them breaking away. So had he served them and worked with them, he would have kept that kingdom. But because he was like, I'm going to roll with a rod of iron, I'm going to show them and be unjust and tax. Because basically Solomon taxed the people high. And that was one of his biggest issues. The taxation was too much, if you read the history of what he did. So basically, had he served these people, he would have kept them loyal to the cause, but he didn't. And because of that, he lost his kingdom. So that was the lesson in there.
That was a great save, by the way. that was a great save. Okay, all right. It's so it's kind of like a side note, kind of not right. So
yeah.
There's like a popular cocktail question. It's like, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
Oh.
You know what? Like, about high school, what I've always wanted is a wisdom. Like, if I could have anything, I want to be like Solomon. And through, I guess, nature or whatever, but life has been giving me lessons to move me towards this objective.
Good.
And wisdom is a very ruthless, like cold-blooded thing.
It can be, yes.
Yeah.
There's moments I've had where, I've had to apply wisdom, and you have to make hard choices sometimes. And it's not always fun, but they're necessary. For example, let's say you and I are, let's say we had lived, I don't know, in a different era, different time, and we were forced to go to war. Let's say our village is being attacked, right? Now, the other side attacking us, they're low on resources. So they see it as, we have to attack them to get resources. We see it as, well, but if we don't protect our resources, we die. Our family dies, right? So let's say we have to fight, right? And there's a moment where you're attacked, and I don't want to kill, because I don't want to kill anyone or anything. But there's a moment where I've got to decide, do I let you die, who's a fellow villager of my civilization, or do I let this outsider kill you, and then my conscience is clear because I didn't kill, but then I let you die? So in that moment, I would have to use the wisdom and kill the guy attacking you, because wisdom would tell me, if I don't let this go, you're going to die. But the good part of me does not want to kill another person. But the wisdom side says, in this moment, you're going to have to do what you have to do.
That's a perfect example. That's a perfect example. So what we have here, Ram, is a conflict of visions. So as you explained, the marauding tribe, right, coming in, and like you had to defend yourself, etc., etc. I, just by way of nature, I cannot relate to that. You see, I was born for conquest. So looking at the opposite tribe as they are only provoked to attack because of some need, I don't think that's completely accurate. I think there are some tribes that are designed to go out and eat smaller, weaker tribes, and that's just how nature goes, right?
Okay.
Also, really fast, we have the government, right? And I had this friend. It wasn't a friend. He was the brother of an acquaintance, a guy I worked with. His name was Stony. I think Stony was a psychopath. Actually, I think he was a sociopath.
Okay.
So Stoney was at war for a little while, and then he came back, and
Hmm.
we're out like at his crib, like we're drinking and such,
Hmm.
and he keeps saying how much he missed war, and
He missed war.
he missed war, and there is a reality, right? Like we watch these movies.
Oh,
Oh, there it is.
to help get the views, right? To help get the views.
You
Uh-huh.
you know, I heard that pets look like their owners, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like we're the same color, same build. Yeah, it is kind of weird. You start looking. I have a neighbor off noted. He's a little chubby, and he's got freckles. So one day he gets his dog and he invites me. Hey, bring the dog over. Years ago, I'm like, your dog's kind of overweight and your dog's got these spots. It was just we started laughing. Like, yeah, but your dog's all like tall and skinny and narrow faced like you. We just started laughing. We're like, we look like our animals, don't we?
Yeah, yeah, that's how it works, man.
Yeah, yeah. But go on. Sorry, go on.
Oh yeah. So there's a reality when it comes to like the military, is that yeah, there are some people doing their jobs. Yeah, there are some people just defending themselves, but there's a special group of people who are incredibly useful, who enjoy the act of taking a life.
No,
And if you
that I don't disagree with. There are people that like I've had to make hard decisions sometimes because I was like put up against the wall and they're not things I look forward to, but there are some people who here's a great example. I used to have a buddy I used to go out with. This was a long time ago. We'd go to the lounge, event, whatever. He would
yeah,
always find a reason to get in a fight with somebody. Always. Always,
huh,
right? He was always instigating stuff. And then I remember thinking to myself, like, I think this guy enjoys it because it always, at first we went out and it was like, okay, you're small, you get picked on because he was really short. But after a while, I started realizing, no, you're the one instigating this stuff. And it dawned on me, you like this drama, you like the problems, like this is a rush for you. And it dawned on me one day when we went out. He started something with the guy. The guy was gonna slaughter this dude, and I had to talk the guy out of it. Like I went because this guy was massive. I was like, look, if this guy fights you, I'm not jumping in because this dude was huge. I was like, one good hit and like even if someone can't fight, just the sheer size,
yeah,
it can
that's
still.
real.
There's a reason why there's weight differences when you fight, right? Because it
Yeah.
makes a difference. This guy was probably 300 pounds. He was probably 6'4". My friend's like 5'5" on a good day, a buck 50. And I'm like, I'm not gonna help you. So I talked to the guy. I'm like, listen, if you beat this guy up, dude, no one's gonna think much of you. Look how small he is. Like, and if you get kicked out, then you're never gonna come here again. And I kind of convinced him. He's like, get your idiot friend out of here. So I got my friend out, and I'll never forget. My friend was like, no, you made me look bad. And I'm like, listen, if you feel bad, go back and go fight him one-on-one then. I'm not going to go with you. Get out the car. And I'll even drop you off. He's like, no, just take me home. So I realized at that moment, you want the war and you want the fight. You just want me as backup. But it dawned on me, he liked the problem. He liked this. So I was like, you know what? I can't chill with you because you're just going to cause problems for me.
Oh
And I don't
no,
have
that would have been a terrible friend. Oh man.
attacked unprovoked, let's say by that guy just out of nowhere, I would have had to jump in to help him, right?
Right.
So let's say I had to bash that guy on the head with a bottle. Out of necessity to protect a friend, I would have did it. But that's not something I go out looking for, right? I'm not looking for that. If it happens because it's a necessity, that's one thing. But going out and trying to find it is a whole nother ballgame. And some people, I think, like you said, they go out looking for it. You may be right about that.
You know, that's an interesting example because your friend said you're making me look bad. So it's almost as though him provoking the fight was to gain some sort of status socially,
Right.
right?
Right.
So if that's the case, it a thing around socialism that, even though I'm headed in my direction, that I do find irritating is this vilification for the obvious pursuit of status, which in a way could also be the obvious pursuit of money.
It could be, yeah, yeah. I think that's the thing too. That's why true socialist ideas. So you're more of a reluctant. A true socialist is like, here's what a true socialist would say. They say,
Okay.
you see, you're greedy. You want to exploit your workers because you just want to make money. You only care about yourself. I've talked to people like this before, right? And I say, well, wait a minute, wait a minute. So I'm greedy because I want to make money, but without money, I can't afford to keep staff. And without those staff working, like I had a girl one time that was a week away, let's say, from losing her home, and I was able to I gave her some money up front, and it was able to work out for her. I said, well, wait a minute, like you just assume I'm greedy, want to make money, but how many people, because of me wanting to pursue this, will indirectly benefit from it? It's like saying you're greedy because you want to plant 5 trees and everyone else only has 1 tree, but I'm not stopping them from planting trees. I'm in my yard, my area, because I have 5 trees here doesn't stop you from planting your trees. Like, no, so you want to take all the seeds and take up all the resources and hog up all the water. I was like, but is it of directly taking away from you? No. And how I would see it, the business side of me would say, okay, here's what we could do. I'll grow orange trees, you grow peach trees, you grow cherry trees, and then this way we can all share amongst each other the different fruits. We don't have to be in this war with each other over resources. How about you do an area that I'm not going to do? Because I don't have enough resources and time to do everything. I may be a plumbing company, but I can't do every plumbing job. I have companies I work with now where I give them referral work because I get so much work, I can't do it. I'll say, hey, I'll do a referral. Give me a kickback if you'd like. And most people are happy. Okay, I'll give you 10%. Okay, you don't have to if you don't want to. No, no, no. And it's like, well, rather than let the call go nowhere, I'll give it to a competitor because I'm not going to do every job. And even if I wanted to, I don't have the manpower to do every job. So I don't see it as we need to fight each other. I see it as, well, can we, for example, if we were 2 tribes and like this tribe wants to attack us because let's say they don't have food and that's the reason why, I'd say, okay, well, what? How can we work together to make this work out? Maybe you have better access to the river and we need access to that water. So the business side of me would say, you gather extra water from us for the river. We'll come with a supply of food and we'll do an exchange for that water because you're going to take the time and energy to put it in the bath or whatever, the buckets, and have it ready for us. And you'll save us that time and energy. Now we don't have to walk around to avoid you. We can go through you. So I would try to find a solution where how can we work together and benefit each other rather than, oh, I got to compete and destroy you. Like, how can we work together and benefit each other, not necessarily slit your throat so I can get it.
Ha 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 ha. But what if that's just so much easier? Why negotiate? What are you talking about?
The problem is when you create an enemy. Let's say I'm at war with someone, right? And I got to get rid of them, and I whack them and they're gone, right? Years later, their grandson finds out what I did. He's coming for me with blood, right? So it's like just because I can do it for a temporary gain. Like I don't want temporary gain for forever enemies is the saying I have. I don't want temporary gain for forever enemies, meaning like, because when you make an enemy with someone, you indirectly make enemies with anyone they're cool with, right? Like if I cause problems for someone, or let's say someone causes problems for my brother, indirectly now I'm their enemy, right? And they don't know to what extent or what resources I have to cause problems for them.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I don't know what this other person has at their expense. And that's often how gangs work, right? Like, I'm going to kill you because your dad killed my dad in a gang war. And then I kill you. And then the nephew of that guy finds out, oh, Ram killed. Then Ram gets killed. Then my sister finds, and it's just it's a constant battle, right? Rather than like, okay, listen, you run this area, we'll stay out of it. We run this area, you stay out of it. If we need to come together, we'll have mutual. But you can work with people more so, even in business, than people think, even if they're in the same field. An example is I have a plumbing company. There's certain jobs I can't do, like new plumbing construction or these bigger jobs. And I refer the work to a guy. He's literally like a neighbor down the street. Now, a lot of the work he does do is similar work to me, but he's able to take these big jobs I can't do. So by me giving him these extra jobs, I directly help a competitor, but he also gives me a kickback. And then when he has small jobs he can't do, he'll call me. So on paper, people would say, you have to compete. You can't let him win. He's your neighbor. He's a competitor. But the reality is he has so many jobs he can't do. I have so many jobs I can't do. He, for example, I don't work on Saturdays. He doesn't work on Sundays. So there's days where, okay, if I can't work or I've got someone who needs help, hey, call this guy. Let me give you a referral. He might get a day where like, hey, dude, it's Sunday. I don't have anyone. Can your guy go? Sure, I got you taken care of. And so we're competitors, but we also try to benefit each other rather than like, I'm gonna slash the tires to his car. It's like, no, well, I'll give you
All
work.
these extremes, it's a sliding scale,
Yeah, that's true. But what I'm trying to say is you can work with competitors and it doesn't have to be I'm gonna hog up all the resources or take everything. It can be mutually beneficial. Even if here's a good example, sports. Oh, 1 second, what happened? All righty. All righty. Yeah, I have these guys washing my car, and I'm at my mom's right now, and my sister came by. So all the guys are done with the car. He said he was gonna take longer than he did, and he got done quick. But what I was gonna say was, for example, like let's look at a sports game, right? When the two teams compete, for example, let's say you have a team you like the Lakers, and I like the Clippers, for example, right? And they go into competition in a game, right? Both sides indirectly benefit, right? Because if the Clippers decide, hey, we're not going to play, then there's nothing to watch, right?
Right.
So the two opposing teams still can mutually benefit each other, because if I don't get the star lineup of LeBron versus Kawhi Leonard, or I don't get my star matchups, right? Then there's nothing to watch. It's like a Super Bowl. You may be cheering for one team, I'm cheering for another, but without them playing against each other, then there's nothing to watch, right? There is no rivalry, there is no show. So that's how I treat other businesses. Yeah, you may be my competitor, but I can find ways to mutually benefit from you. A good example too, I have a computer store, and one of our guys, he left the company for different reasons, and so we were getting these extra jobs that we couldn't really keep up with. And so I called this other computer store guy down the street and said, hey, look, we have these extra jobs. Would you be willing to take them, and we could work out a deal? And he's like, oh, yeah. So we give him these jobs now. He's a competitor, right? Because he's his own company. He directly competes with us in the same neighborhood. Right. But we mutually benefit off each other, because we get these computer jobs we can't do that he now does. And then he's teaching my guy at the office, my main tech, how to do certain jobs now that we didn't know how to do previously. So even though we're competitors, we are mutually beneficial to each other. We're not like we got to slaughter each other to win. It's like, well, listen, how can I add value to you? How can you add value to me? How can we find a middle ground to make this value work and benefit off each other? Just like how we're doing, right? We disagree with capitalist, socialist ideas, but we come together and we say, okay, let's talk about it. What are solutions? How can we solve it? And how is it beneficial, right? How can we work it out? I get good YouTube content. It's mutually beneficial. So not everything has to be, some things have to be, clear cut, but not everything has to be that way. Sometimes you can find these areas where, let me work with you, and how can we be a benefit? We don't have to kill each other to make sure everybody thrives. We can all do well together. We don't have to slaughter each other.
Yeah, it's like everything you're saying is correct. My perspective. So what you said about giving the other computer guy business, do you see it as like an act of cooperation? I would see that as a type of leverage. You know what I mean? It's like putting debt onto a smaller nation so that they're now I can't say enslaved. That's a tricky word.
Right. But I see what you're saying. So I guess it really depends on the viewpoint you're coming from, right? Because I see it as, well, I'm providing you jobs now that you otherwise did not have, because he wasn't getting them on his own. He's free to deny my jobs. He doesn't have to do them. But he in turn offered to teach my guy how to do work. We didn't ask him. It was just kind of like, hey, I'll kind of show you.
Yeah.
So now it's like, well, we're all benefiting each other now, and nobody's starving to death, right? I'm providing you jobs that we can't do. You're willing to teach my guy jobs that you can't do anymore because you're older. And it's like, well, now we're all benefiting together. And a true, a flawed concept with that, I think, true socialists, not reluctant socialists, but true socialists, is no, in order to be capitalist, you have to slaughter everybody and take up all the resources for you. Well, that's not true, because I literally added value to this guy's company by giving him jobs that he was not getting. And he told us, yeah, I wasn't getting this kind of work. He's adding value to us by teaching us how to do stuff we didn't know how to do. So we're both adding value. Nobody's taking away anything from anyone. We're only adding value. And because of it, we're both making money.
So is it then a matter of perspective?
It might be. Yeah, it might be. It literally might be, because I'm coming from the perspective of, I'm a job creator. I'm a business owner. I could see how someone who doesn't operate that realm would see it as, oh, well, you're just using this little company so that you don't have to hire another person. And, the narrative could be easily flipped. But it's like, okay, here's what I tell everybody. And I actually want to do this as a challenge. I want to get man, if you were close, this would be a fun one. I want to get someone who's a true socialist, communist, have them do a bunch of work for me for the day. And then at the end of it, do the following, because I want to see how many. And to give you credit, the first time I offered you, you're like, no, I'm doing it for the cause. So I give you credit. But what I'd like to do is at the end of it, say, listen, I owed you $100 for the work. And I say, okay. I say, but I was very happy with your work. I'm happy to give you an extra $50. Or we can take that $50, split it into 25-25, and we're going to give it to 2 college students who I know that work in my office building. And we're going to give it to them because it's not fair that they don't have the time or the energy or the resources to make money. And because most people, I'm telling you,
That's hilarious.
They're going to say, no, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But why not? We want everyone to get share. And you took resources that they didn't have because they had a study. And so you were exploiting those resources. I want to do this because I know I'm going to get a lot of backlash. But I know most people are going to say, no, give me my money. At the end of it, I'm going to say, give me my pay. So I want to do an episode like that where I do that flip at the end and say, you have now been converted to capitalism.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant, dude.
So
they would. They'd be like, no, I want the money.
Well, I had a guy, you responded to the ad, but I had a guy straight up tell me, he's like, hey, before I go on, I think I told you, he's like, I want this, pay this, that, my time's not free. I'm like, well, wait a minute. If you're truly down for your cause, why are you exploiting me for my resources, right?
Wow.
And he got all upset. He's like, well, just because I'm a socialist doesn't mean it's free. I was like, wait a minute. If you're really that down for your cause, I have classes where I teach people business stuff. I don't charge them for it. It's literally free. It's literally free. I mean, at least financially. It goes like, there is no, they come to my office, they use my lights, they use my furniture, and I go over little classes with them. I don't charge them for this. I enjoy doing it because I like helping people. For me, that it's a fun thing to do, see them do well. But I'm not charging them. And I said, if you were really down for your cause like that, how come you don't want to talk for free? And he got all upset. And I says, but I would have paid him anyways. I was like, I'm not going to deal with this kind of mindset. This is going to be really hard to deal with.
So that would have been tough. Yeah, that's yeah, my time is valuable. Yeah.
Everybody's time means something. I don't care if you're a billionaire. If you got $50 to your name, your time is your time, and a person's time should be respected. It's just that's how it goes.
Only if they respect it, and only if they add value in the end. If they don't,
yeah, that is true. That is true. Yeah, some people don't. I guess that's the biggest take. The biggest take with capitalism in a true sense, not in this I'm going to slice you up and kill you sense, but in a true sense,
it's a range.
Yeah, it is. But in a true sense, we have to add value because, like I said, nobody's obligated to hire my companies for business, right? At any moment, they could say, we don't want to use you, and I would cease to be a business, right? But I have to make sure my value is really, really high, whether that's my staff is really trained. Are we doing extra stuff? Are we going the extra mile to provide just like the best service? Are we doing these things? Because if we don't, people don't use this, and it's a universal life principle you can have. It doesn't even need to be business, but like, hey, whenever I meet someone, am I adding value to their life in some way, shape, or form? And it could be anything. It could be anything. Because if you don't add value, you take value. You're either one or the other. You either help somebody with value or you don't. And so for me, I try to have the mindset, not always, but I try. How do I add value? So like when I did a podcast with this guy recently. He's an athlete, and I gave him 2 good ideas that he could do for videos, and he's like, dude, those are good ideas. And I was like, anyone I talk to, I'm like, how can I give them 1 or 2 points of value to make them more valuable? And whether they ever call me again or not, they'll know you as, hey, this person adds value to people's lives, whether it's business. It doesn't need to just be a financial thing, but do I add value? Do I add value to the situation?
Hey, so it's a funny thing you would have mentioned that video. Is an accurate perception of someone, could it be valuable if the person in question doesn't know what's happening?
Yes.
How often do you do in-person interviews, Ram?
In person, I try to as much as I can, but a lot of people, because of scheduling, can't. But I try. I have a studio for in-person interviews, so I think I have like 4 in the works being worked on. I think I have 4 that I've done where they come in person and we talk.
Okay. How important do you think body language is?
It's extremely important.
How do you think your body language was in that video?
Which one?
The one with the athlete. This is where I'm just being frank. I'm just being frank, buddy. I wasn't able to finish the video because you kept distracting me. You looked very uncomfortable.
The one with the sports athlete?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I was like, it was really obvious.
I'm trying to think what happened that day. Well, first off, we filmed and it was like, I think that was like at 11 o'clock at night when we did that. It was really late. I'm trying to think what happened that day. No, one of the things too, what had happened with him, my camera guy forgot to bring the light diffuser. So you may not notice in that film, it on the back of my logo, my board, there was a really bright spot of light hitting it. So the light we have is really strong.
Okay.
And we did not have the light diffuser. So the camera he has goes directly right in that ring light that he has. And the light was strong. So
Yeah.
trying to look and make full contact, it was like blinding. And even the other guy, we were like, afterwards we turned it off and we ended up hanging out for like 40 minutes after. But it was really hard to like look in the camera because the light was so bright. And he forgot the diffuser and it was like just staring in the sun. And I'm trying to have a conversation. So I kept kind of like look away because it was really hard to make eye contact.
Yeah,
so
that's how it was.
He forgot the diffuser, and even for the other guy, Chris, because when he was sitting there, we were like blinded. It was like, and I told him, man, you can't forget this again. Like this was really. So if I looked kind of like, it was because the light was just blinding. It was like we had a headache.
Okay.
Probably what.
Okay.
Because he was. We hung out afterwards. He was cool.
Yeah.
So that's probably what it was. So it's good you mentioned. So I'm going to show him this because I was really upset. Like, man, why did you forget or why, like, you should have known to bring the diffuser. Like, this is you're the expert. And I
had one job.
I was a little tough on him. I'm like, dude, I paid you to come here and you forgot, like, forgot what we needed. And he was like, no, you're right. So I was like, next time we need to keep one here because, dude, it was such an uncomfortable feeling where I couldn't look because I kept kind of looking away and I couldn't make eye contact. It was hard.
Yeah,
so that's probably. Well, I'm glad you noticed it because I was mad at him. So I'm going to show him this and say, listen, like someone else agreed because I was really upset. So
that's okay. Well, all right. It wasn't a personal attack. It just the presentation as the audience. I want to I'm on your team.
You're adding value. No, it's good because oftentimes what we may think is good to us, getting an outside person's perspective is like, oh, I never would have thought of that. Like, because I think I like it the way I like it is like, well, but you're doing it to gain audience, right? And you have to provide stuff your audience likes, not what you like. And there's a girl I spoke with earlier. She's got an expertise in this specific field, and she doesn't like to talk about it. I was like, why? She's like, well, because I want people to know me as more than this thing. I was like, yeah, but that thing you're doing, not a lot of people can do. She's like, yeah, but I'm more than that. I said, look, LeBron James is known as a basketball player, right? We know him for basketball. That's his platform. She said, right. I said, so he can use that platform to get into other platforms. But he can't now say, well, I'm LeBron James, the man. Don't associate me with basketball because I'm more than that. Well, we know him because of that. That's the only reason we know who you are is because of basketball. And so I said, use that platform to go to other ones, but you cannot separate that. I said, just like I can give business advice because I run business. I can't say, well, look at me as a person and ignore the business side. Well, that doesn't work that way. That aspect carries over. And so I was trying to explain it to her, and when she realized, oh, if I think of it in that way, it's not such a negative. And I said, no, you don't have to only focus on that, but you should use that as a platform because it's not like not everybody can do this thing you're doing.
Right. And that's a brutal reality because even when you get up as high as say Justin Bieber and like these really high level people, even though they get a lot of validation, which seems as though the other person is thinking about them, in the end, we all just care about ourselves. We really do. Like, I don't care if you had a bad day. I'm still just thinking about myself, really.
There's an element to human beings where it's kind of necessary for our it's you have to take care of yourself first. Let's say you're genuine and you want to be kind, and there's genuinely good people in the world. But you do have to make sure you're taking, like, let's say I want to help the homeless, but I'm homeless myself. Well, there's really not much you can do if you don't have your stuff together, right? It's like, well, get a career. You maybe get some money. Maybe you get a place. Maybe you get a couple resources together. But you kind of have to look out for yourself first before you can help anybody. Because I'm not like, I only hired staff years later, but I had to build business first, right? I couldn't say, I want to just provide jobs, but I didn't have the resources. But in order to get the resources, I had to have my interest at heart in order to get the resources in order to do it. And that's, I think, I don't, it's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just the way life was designed, you know?
Hey, so, and I'm the communist, but anyway, really fast. I know we're coming up on time.
Sure, sure, sure.
I think giving to the homeless is a very socialistic thing to do, and I'll tell you why. So here where I live is St. Louis, where you see people in the corner, you see homeless,
Yeah.
whatever, like people just giving them money. And like in my mind, I'm like, okay, you just gave this person $5 or $10, and yet you have like a local high school, like a junior high, where you have these kids who have spent a whole semester like learning plays, coming to practice. That same $5 to $10 could be spent paying someone who is adding value to the world, and not that thing who, not everyone, but a lot of them, they aren't there on accident.
No,
They
you're
are
right.
there
I
because
agree.
of their personal decisions. So it's like rewarding those who
Lazy.
just take value. They just take value without giving anything back. I think it's not only wasted, but I mean, just
Yeah,
like
you know
just
what?
go to,
You make a really good point. Years ago, I met this guy, and this was many years ago, and he was homeless. So I was going into the store, so I felt bad. He didn't have like shoes or, and so I had like an extra maybe like $25 on me. So I told this dude, look, you can come with me to the store. Why don't you get yourself, you know, some socks and like as long as we can keep it under this, like it's just some extra money. It's not much, but and he's like, okay, yeah, yeah, man, I'd appreciate it. So he comes in with me to Ross, and this was actually in Missouri. Comes with me to the store. We find a pair at Ross of the. So this guy's tall. He's like maybe 6'4". He's a tall dude. He finds a pair of shoes that are size 14 that fit him. Now, you know, when you're that tall, not everyone's got a size 14 shoe, right? So he sees the shoes and he's like, oh, dude, these will fit me. And they were nice shoes. And so they were like, I think like $20. It was almost the full budget. I'm like, look, you can get the shoes and some socks. And then I had some extra shirts in my car that I just gave him. So he's like, oh man, thanks so much. So I felt good. I'm like, okay, hey, you know what? I try to be a decent human. I'm not, you know, perfect, but hey, you know what? So then I never forget. I'm like, where do you need to go? He's like, oh, if you can take me to this, I have a friend I can stay there tonight because it's already like towards the evening, midday evening. I'm like, okay, cool. So I take this dude, and when I take him, I'm like, hey, why don't you put the shoes on? Keep in mind, up until this point, this dude had like, they were like they weren't like real, they were like destroyed sandals. They were like, there wasn't really anything there. Let me put it that way. And I'm like, why don't you try them on? He's like, oh, no, no, I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm like, you don't want to try them on? He's like, no, 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 no. And that's when I dawned, oh, this dude's going to go sell these.
he's going to
He's gonna
sell them.
he's gonna sell them or trade them for
Yeah.
drugs. Because I'm like, well, so then I did this. I'm like, hey, why don't you take the pair you have off, give them to me, and I'll go recycle them. He's like, oh no, 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 I'm good, dude. I'm good. I'm like, wait, I just bought you a pair of shoes, and now you're denying to put the new shoes on. It was very weird to me. And I remember at that moment I realized I got played. This dude's gonna go take all that stuff I gave him and use it as bartery for other stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, darn. So like you said, that would have been better finding a local, maybe the Girl Scouts where they're actually learning things. They're helping the wildlife, you know. So I think that is a good point. Like there was a guy, here's a good one. He's in my neighborhood. He always asks for money, right? He's always by the store asking for money. He's got a sign. So one day I went up to this dude and I said, hey, I need some help washing my car. I will pay you to wash my car. You can come with me. It's one of those self washes. Everything's there, and I'll pay you hourly. I can give you. It'll probably take hour and a half. I'll give you $50 plus I'll pay for her stuff because
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, because I had my computer. I'm like, he can wash it, and I can knock out some stuff. So it's a win-win for both, right? And he's like, oh man, I can't do that. I'm like, but why? You got a sign saying you need money. He's like, yeah, but if I lose the spot, like I'm gonna lose the free money I get every day. Like I'm making basically $50 an hour doing nothing. Why would I go work for you? I'm like, okay, so you're a leech. Like you play the little role, but you don't really want to work. Because I offered you a job and you denied.
Is he a leech though? I mean, that was kind of a cost benefit analysis, wasn't it?
Like he's gonna lose more money by
leaving.
Yeah, see, so that's where I would make the differentiation. If a person has some morals, for me personally, I would rather work and make less and know I did it than get handouts from people.
Yeah.
For me personally.
Yeah.
Someone could say, here, marry this girl right now. You're gonna have $50 million because her dad's a millionaire. I would say, screw it, keep it. I would rather have less and have the pride knowing I worked hard and I helped build things myself. Maybe I'll never have 50 million. Cool. But that pride to make whatever I made, you cannot buy that. It's not something that can be bought.
Man, my pride is definitely worth $50 million. Okay, I'm sorry. Like, what if like she was just like a bad chick too, and she was super
Okay,
into
all
you?
right.
Come on, and $50 million.
Okay, let's pause. No, because
Come on.
I had an opportunity one time with someone who was. It was a lot. Let me put it that way. And I was like, no, I'd rather have pride and do it myself than to take handouts. But like this guy was only probably 30 years old. So it's like, I know you can work. You just, for you, you'd rather milk the system and not do anything or contribute. So for me, as a business owner, my mindset is, can I add value? To me, he's not adding value to anybody other than maybe the people think they're doing him a good deed. But there is no value that he's really creating, because what happens, I don't know, for me, it's just as a man, like I couldn't live that way. Like, let me just mooch off people. If I have the ability to work, if you're in a position where something economically happens or there's some medical, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this guy was perfectly able and healthy. I offered him work and he was like, no, I don't want it. So for me, I couldn't do that to myself personally. It would be hard for me to lower myself to that level. I would at least sell water or something. Like, let me sell waters or sodas or can. Like, I wouldn't want it for free.
Yeah, but see, you raise an interesting point, because you and him, on a fundamental level, nature and nurture be damned, are two completely separate people. And no matter how much money is given to this man, he's the same type of person. So to do a callback to Solomon, this would be an example where, like, yeah, okay, so like we have these people here and there who are making money standing on the corner, and yeah, some of them are surviving, blah 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 blah. The wise cut the baby in half decision would be everyone everywhere to stop giving panderers any money and just wait for the ones to die out, and the ones who don't to change.
Yeah, it is.
No, don't go back on this. No, nice guy.
It is very interesting. Like, yeah, like, see, like someone like that guy, like, can he be taught to like create value? Because he obviously he doesn't want to work. Like, it's like he's got the system down where he stands out, puts on a sad face, and collects money. Here's a good example. Maybe a month or two ago, I saw this girl. She had a bald head and she had a sign, 4 months to live, dying of cancer. So I felt kind of bad, right? So I was like, let me just like, I don't give her a word of encouragement. Be not like, if you're gonna die in 4 months, and this is true. So I go up to her. I'm like, hey, and so I'm talking to her. So I start looking at her. I'm like, what kind of cancer do you? She starts telling me, keep in mind, I have medical background. I'm like, wait a minute. If you had that, you could not even be out here like this. How'd you get here? So I walked from those. I was like, if you had what you just told me, you could not have even walked over here. Wow. So I start looking at her, and keep in mind, I'm talking to her for, let's say, 40 minutes. Within those 40 minutes, she probably made 80 to 100 bucks, 20 bucks. Here's 10. Here's a 5. People are just handing her money. And I'm like, wait a minute. So then I did something. I said, listen, where would you like to go and spend a day of fun, all expense paid, if you could go anywhere you want in the world? And she's like, oh, man, I would love to like just go to Six Flags Magic Mountain. I've never been there. I'm like, so if I could take you, you'd be down to go? Like, it's on me. Like, I'll pick you up. We'll go. So, oh, that'd be amazing. Now, keep in mind, she just told me she had stage 4 cancer, right?
Oh.
I'm like, wait, how are you going to be able to get on roller coasters and do all this? She's
that's
like,
a
oh,
trap.
well, she's like, well, it's hypothetical. I'm like, no, I said, you just told me you were down to go and you had no reservations about it. A true
Yeah.
person dying would be like, I really appreciate this, but I couldn't go even if I want. And you were down to go. And she's like, no, I really have cancer, sir. I wouldn't lie. I'm like, so then I did another test. I'm like, okay, you know, I apologize. Maybe I came off as hard. I said, listen to what I like to do. I'd like to get your number and get you in touch with people that run an organization I know to help with funding. And then she's like, oh, I don't have a phone. I'm like, oh, well, you know what? I have a business. I can buy you a temporary phone for a month, put it on my plan. It's like, sir, I couldn't do that. I would just feel terrible if I took your money. I'm like, but you didn't feel terrible just collecting $80 in the last 4 minutes. What's the difference? She got up and walked away because she knew she messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a moment of like, okay, you're just
Yeah.
playing us for fools out here.
But it's our fault because we are paying her. We are rewarding her behavior.
Right. So that's
Cut
my
that
take
baby in half.
If somebody's like, hey, I need money, I'm like, are you willing to work for it? Oh, I can't. Then sorry. Are you willing to come to my office and clean? No, then no. Are you willing to fill in the blank? And if they're not willing to do anything, I don't give them anything anymore. Because I had one guy, I asked him like, hey, you know, I need help with this, and he agreed. So I got him brochures. I had him go door to door for 3 hours and put these brochures, you know, like those guys that go around and pass stuff out.
Yeah.
And I asked him for it. It was the summer. I picked them up. I said, I'm going to drive by the neighborhood and make sure you did this. He said, no. Drop them off, picked them up. I drove through the whole neighborhood, and I could see my little brochure door hangers. And so I paid him.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so that's my take. Are you willing to work for it? If you're not, then I don't bother with you, because then I know chances are then you just want to hand out. Like, you don't really want to put in the work.
No.
But you're right. We do enable this mentality, and it needs to be stopped. Like, people need to stop being babied so much, because it's like you don't. These are the people that end up thinking the world owes them things, right? Just because they're them. It's like nobody owes you anything in life.
Yeah.
But if it's like a spoiled kid getting everything they want, they grow up being rotten adults because their parents never said no, never disciplined them, never said no, you can't do that. Sorry. It's like I have a friend. She raised her daughter with, my daughter's a princess. She gets anything. I was like, good luck to you when that girl's a teenager. Good luck. And that girl is a teenager, and she's hell. She's hell on earth for the mother.
Yeah. She's like, I don't know what boundaries are. She's gonna get this dude who just whips her ass. She's like, finally, boundaries.
That's exactly what's gonna happen. So it's sad, but you're right. Yeah, you make a good point. So
That's interesting.
I never thought in a million years I'd think of King Solomon, cut that baby in half, but maybe it's a good concept. Something bad, just get rid of it.
Wisdom.
Yeah,
That's
get
what
rid
it
of it.
is.
There we go. Yeah, man.
All right. Well,
Hey, that was an hour. Beautiful. Okay, so we'll continue a part 3. I'll hang up with this with you now, and I'll shoot you a text right now, okay?
Gotcha, man.
Okay, thanks so much. Thank you.
Ram wants you to succeed and will continue to bring you unconventional money-making content for free. Leave a comment below, a like, and if you would, subscribe for more money-making tips. Also, take this opportunity for an amazing offer from Webull. 2 free stocks worth up to $1,800. See the link in the description below. They even give Ram a free stock. Everybody wins.